These are the top 5 meta weapons to use for range play in Modern Warfare 3. Starting out with the MCW, this is Optic Kenny's build. Going into the attachments, the first one that we're going to be choosing is the 16.5 Cyclone Long Barrel. This improves the bullet velocity and range by a ton, and really the only reductions are in tac stance spread, which you're not going to be worried too much about. Going over to the muzzle, we're going to scroll all the way over to the billeted brake. What the billeted brake does is improve the vertical recoil by a ton, as well as the firing aim stability and gun kick control, and the reductions in horizontal recoil aren't significant enough to impact how this gun shoots at range, but I'm going to be showing you another one that pros use in different MCW classes after this one. Going down to underbarrel, we're going to choose the X10 Phantom 5 hand stop. This helps with sprint to fire and aim down sight speed, which is really needed when you're using an AR like this one, and the only reductions are in hip fire and horizontal recoil, which we've already discussed isn't terribly important when it comes to the AR. You can still shoot this gun very well at long range. Going over to the optic, the two different options that you can choose from are either the slate reflector or the Mark III reflector, depending on personal preference. Since this is Optic Kenny's build, he's known for using the slate reflector, so try this one out. We're going to keep it going for this build. And the stock, which stays pretty consistent across the board, is the RB Regal heavy stock to work on recoil control and gun kick control without really slowing the gun down that much when it comes to the cons. Now, when we take this into the firing range, the gun can obviously shoot very straight at all ranges, but the one thing that it lacks on a little bit is its strafe speed, which we're going to talk about in the next build, and why I think the next build is a little bit better than that. Before we get to class number 4, we're going to go over the common perks, lethals, tacticals, and field upgrades. If you're going for long-range gunfights, the marksman gloves will help when it comes to flinch and focus. For the most part, either quick grip gloves or ordnance gloves will help you with throwing tacticals, lethals, and even the trophy systems. So depending on your playstyle, if you're really sitting back and going for those longer range gunfights, I'd say go marksman. Other than that, go either quick grip or ordnance gloves. Covert sneakers are going to be standard across the board except for on some SMG classes, and then the gear, I would stick to EOD padding, maybe tac mask, depending on certain strats. Stun grenade or maybe one smoke on a search and destroy, and then frag grenade or Semtex will be the two that you'll choose between on the lethals. And also real quick before class number 4, we'll go over the Renetti class. If muzzles are allowed in ranked play, I would go with a comp 905. This helps with vertical, horizontal, and gun kick control. The barrel, we're going to be using the short competition barrel to improve the movement speed. And if you go into the details of this one, it actually helps with your sprint speed and your tactical sprint speed. So it helps you get places faster off the rip of rounds. Optic is personal preference. I like the slate reflector. Some people like it better without. And then the rear grip, if you can use the Renetti wood grain, I would, but technically anything that doesn't help with movement speed is G8. So if you're trying to play like the pros, I would use the Eclipse or grip, which helps with movement speed, sprint to fire speed, and then the aim walking speed as well. I believe if you're trying to play like the pros, you also shouldn't be using a muzzle. So if you're trying to play like the pros, either this class right here or adding a slate reflector. If you don't really care as much, put on the wood grain grip and that muzzle that we talked about earlier. And now for class number 4, this is Scrappy's class, one of the best ARs in the game. We're going to stick with that same barrel that we used for the last class. Like I said, standard across the board, the Cyclone barrel for bullet velocity and range. The muzzle is where this one is going to differ, as well as the underbarrel. We're going to scroll all the way down to the L4R flash hider, which is here. This helps with recoil control and gun kick control with just a slight reduction in aim down sight speed. So unlike the billeted brake, this one does not impact your bullet velocity or range. That's why you might like this a little bit more. This one also will have better strafe because we're going with a DR6 hand stop for the underbarrel. As you see, it helps with aim walking speed, aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, and movement speed with only reductions in hip fire and aim walking steadiness. The reason this is super important, which I'll show in the firing range in a little bit, is the strafe speed on this gun is insane. So if you're playing on controller and work with rotational aim assist, this gun is actually nuts. So in a lot of hard points, this is kind of going to be my go-to. Up next, we have the optic. Like I said, personal preference, but when we're talking Scrappy, he likes the Mark III reflector, so we're going to stick with that. And then the same stock as previously, the RB Regal Heavy. I'm going to take this into the firing range and show y'all what I'm talking about. As we aim down sight, we're strafing so much faster than we were previously. And then if you fastly strafe left and right, that's going to help your rotational aim assist even more as we're shooting at all these bots in all these ranges. The good thing about the DR6 underbarrel is that it also helps with sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed, so it's kind of a well-balanced gun that's good at all ranges and supports a faster playstyle on game modes like hardcore and control. Through the rest of this class, we're rocking stun, Semtexes, trophies, and quick grip gloves, as well as the other perks we were talking about before. And now for class number 3, we're going back to Optic Kenny. This is the new MCW that he's trying out. It's going to be a little bit faster because it uses no muzzle at all, which is a little bit weird, but stay tuned to see how the rest of the class pans out. We're going to go with the 16.5 MCW Cyclone Long Barrel. For the underbarrel, We're going back to the X10 Phantom 5, the one that helps with the sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. We're still going to be rocking the slate reflector for the optic. The stock, we're going with the same RB Regal Heavy that we've talked about before. Where this differs is in the rear grip. We're choosing the claw grip, which helps with firing aim stability, gun kick control, and recoil control. And from the YouTube videos that I watched on this game, firing aim stability is one of the better pros when it comes to attachments, helping out aim in this game. So it's a little bit weird because it has no muzzle, but if you see when I take this into the firing range, it still shoots very straight. The strafe is not as crazy as it was with the DR6. Per usual, at all ranges, it's able to shoot very well. It feels nice and fast due to that X10 Phantom 5 underbarrel. So the sprint to fire speed feels very good. And despite not having a muzzle, you can still control the recoil very well because of that claw grip that we were talking about before. A little bit of a horizontal bump in the middle of that, but that's the same thing that you would get with that billeted brake because it makes the horizontal recoil even worse. And now for class number 2, we're getting into the Rival 9. A more meta SMG. This is going to be a starter Rival 9 for those of you that might be AR players, might not be used to shooting the Rival 9. This class will feel very similar to y'all, except for one of the attachments that we'll go over later. So across the board on all Rival 9s, we're going to stick with a Purifier muzzle brake because this gun has such insanely bad horizontal recoil. You want anything that you can do to help with that control. For the barrel, we're going to go with the clear shot barrel to help with bullet velocity and damage range. The only reductions really are in hip fire, aim walking, sprint to fire, and movement speed, which will help a little bit later too. This gun's already fast, so it doesn't need much help. Now on the underbarrel, where this one differs. While I would only recommend using this class if you're newer to the Rival 9 or have trouble with the recoil, we're going to swirl all the way down to the Bruin Pivot vertical grip. This helps with the gun kick control and vertical recoil, and really only hurts with horizontal aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. And if we go over to the rear grip, we'll use the Rival Vice for gun kick control. And then if we go to the stock, we're going to use the MTZ Marauder stock for even more gun kick control. And what this looks like in the firing range is a very easy way to shoot incredibly straight with this gun. Even at the longer ranges you can beam, it's going to be a little bit slower than the typical meta class. But like I said, if you're somebody who struggles with recoil on the Rival 9, try this class out first before going into the next one. The rest of the classes here, I'll typically run dead silence on my SMG classes just to better enforce that 2 trophy rule when it comes to pro play, but you can swap this out for a trophy system if needed. Quick grip, covert sneakers, and then EOD padding. And now for class number 1, my favorite class in the game, my favorite gun in the game is a different Rival 9 class. We are staying in the muzzle with that same Purifier muzzle brake we were talking about earlier for the horizontal recoil. Same barrel, the clear shot barrel with damage range and bullet velocity. The underbarrel is where this one differs. We're going with a DR6 hand stop, the same one from that second AR class, to help with the aim walking speed, aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed. It's going to make this gun very, very fast. The rear grip, the same one, Rival Vice assault grip, and then the stock, the MTZ Marauder for gun kick control. Now how this one differs is all in that DR6 hand stop. The strafe speed is insane with this gun, and despite not having the benefits of the Bruin Pivot vertical grip, you can still shoot very well even at range, strictly because you're strafing so much faster than you would be with a Bruin Pivot vertical grip. So even at this far range, if I'm strafing fast enough, I'm still able to shoot straight enough to kill that far bot. The same thing with the medium and the close ones. You're already playing an SMG, so you're going to be up close anyways. That's why this is my preference for the Rival 9. And those are my top 5 class setups for MW3 Ranked Play. If you all enjoyed, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time at lunchtime.